All right, Miss Rhoden, geometry. So thank you for meeting with me today. You have some snacks for you to enjoy.
You're
this
awesome.
Is your planning.
This is amazing.
Yes. Check for you because I'm amazing. But no, for real, let's talk a little bit about students and writing in math. What are your thoughts?
I think that is something that we should definitely help the kids become stronger, writing students, especially in math. I think sometimes it's harder for us to get them where we want them to be because that real skill is being taught somewhere else.
Right.
And we're counting on the fact that they've actually learned how to write and are proficient, and then build off of that and have them write well, but not just well, but to include the math terminology and to be able to express that using the verbiage and all those fun things about language arts that, punctuation and things of that nature.
So with that being said, and I think that speaks exactly to what we're going to pre-conference about today, because I want, with your permission, to work with you on some strategies that we can share with the rest of the geometry team and all the math team that can potentially address our specific concerns about writing in mathematics. So here you see this is one of the constructed response problems they had from the first benchmark, and I selected this one because it was really close to the one they just did in benchmark 3, and we didn't see success with that. So wanted to go over this with you first and kind of get your thoughts about maybe why the students wouldn't have been successful, and then maybe we can troubleshoot together to see if the strategy that I wanted to share will be helpful, and if not, we could tweak it together, and then we'll kind of run it together. So what are your thoughts about this particular question, just from knowing your students, looking at this at a glance? What do you already understand in terms of why this might have been a challenge?
The first thing that they're asking them to do is to translate the figure. I think they're able to count in the direction, the way it's presented to them. So now you've picked up all kids who understand what translation is because it's not in translation notation. However, when you get to writing the ordered pairs, we still have students who have trouble plotting points. We still have students, and I'm reviewing that every time we use any type of graphing in geometry, and even this is March, correct? I am correcting students this week on plotting circles that you always plot the X coordinate first and not the Y, which is still kind of surprising since they start learning to graph in 5th grade. So that's an uphill battle, and it's not just 1 or 2; it's actually, minimum 25%. And so now you're trying to correct, things from years ago. B, are the garden and its translation congruent? Well, if they don't get this graphed properly, then that's going to throw it off as well. Some of the kids that we're subtracting the 25% who struggle with plotting points. That leaves 75%. Out of 75, sometimes you just have kids who are just not thorough. And they'll plot very sloppily. I did correct that this week. If it's 2-3, they plotted 3-3. Just not by being conscientious and thorough.
That makes a huge difference. That it's not accurate.
So if it's not accurate, then definitely they're going to answer as not congruent. C.
What about this part?
Justify your thinking. Well,
because when I was looking at some of the data, a lot of them either didn't answer at all, or IDK, or they would answer a part of it. And everywhere where it said justify, and this wasn't all kids, it's just majority, the justifying the thinking, that rationale was a challenge.
That's something I'm still a little perturbed about as well. I'm confused because I don't know, justify, and this would be my fault, I've never even asked the students if they really truly understand what that word means. And I found that in testing or just regular math problems, a lot of times kids don't know certain definitions of simple words. But I think maybe half of them may know justify means to explain.
Or defend or something like that.
But you still got kids who don't even know what that means. Then you have the kids, they know what congruent mean. But they'll, the ones who at least will try, who really don't have the skill to, put their thoughts into words, well, it's equal.
Gotcha.
You know,
Okay.
and then you have the ones who they just struggle with trying to make complete sentences and really take the time to describe what they're thinking.
Okay.
Or they think they're wrong.
Or they think they're wrong.
Yeah.
So confidence.
Yeah.
So what about the C part of that question?
Explain how you can determine if a function represents a translation. Okay, we don't even have to read the rest. A lot of kids come from Algebra 1, and
Okay.
they are not proficient.
Gotcha.
So function, equations. I have been teaching to solve equations all year. And I would never blame those teachers because I know they're doing it too. I just think maybe we got to figure a different way to present
Right.
equations. And we need to let them know that's interchangeable.
Yeah, because I see them working with functions down here every day
Right.
in algebra. So they're teaching it.
Right. And they just, I don't think that because they've heard equation all through middle school.
Right.
8th grade, you hear function.
So it's still terminology. I
Yeah,
hear you
I
keep
think
saying
it's
vocabulary
yeah.
and terminology.
And I think when you introduce functions, you start introducing function notation.
Right.
And they never really get the true understanding they're the same as equations.
And I think the one thing that I notice about your classroom is that you do use an active word wall. So they do see the vocabulary consistently. And I think that the more they see that, then we can start to address some of the
Right.
issues they're having with terminology. So
Yeah.
maybe we need to make that a non-negotiable, that we have a word wall that's functional for the students as well, so that we don't run into this.
Okay.
What about this last D part?
Describe a transformation that would create a garden similar.
Because this is
not
rigorous.
correct.
Like, this requires a lot to
It
answer
does
this
a lot
one.
of thinking.
Which is why they stopped. They put, I don't know.
Right. Did that? I think that's why I was asking you about how do we get them to persevere.
Right.
Because as soon as they see something tough, it's like, okay, whatever.
Right.
This one, I want to feel confident with the kids.
Okay.
Because transformations, I always tell them you have the 3 that doesn't change size and shape, but you have that 1 dilation
Right.
that will, increase or decrease the size of the shape.
Because that was the activity you had them doing on the big post, the big,
chart paper.
yeah, the big chart paper
Yeah.
on the hallway. Yeah.
And give the ordered pairs for the vertices.
Because I think
Here,
they've seen that.
they've seen that. I think they know what that is, but I think because they might wonder. I think when they might have to synthesize with this because they're not giving them a dilation factor. And a lot of kids do not feel comfortable or don't realize that they can create their own examples.
Right.
So they can just choose a factor and see what happens and then talk about it.
And so that leads me into, I'm glad you're so knowledgeable about mathematics. Well, because that's
generous,
important.
guys. That's generous.
No, but you are. But content knowledge is important because then you understand the building blocks of what they need to know to be able to do this, and what some of the potential issues are that might affect why they're not doing well on these type of questions.
Okay.
Because again, this was the benchmark where the geometry team blew it out the water.
Right.
So,
right.
But we still don't want to leave any points on the table.
Right,
So
I agree.
I don't know if you remember, but when we did the training on the evidence-based writing and math,
Right.
and we talked about these 4 blocks, and one was the question, one was the evidence, and this was basically the rationale or the actually written part went here, and then here was the actual math with them working it out. And I just want to see
I like that.
if this will maybe address or can be used to give them a strategy, because when they just see it and say, I'm done, in my mind, and I don't know, you can agree or disagree, usually that's because they don't have a plan of attack.
Right, they don't have the tools. I think this would be a great tool. As a matter of fact, hopefully if we can work together and maybe do 3 or 4 of those activities, because then that gives them a tool on the GMAS. Let me draw my box.
Right.
Okay. What are they asking me? What do I have? How would I work it out? And then they have a box to try to put it in words.
Right.
And whatever they can piece together, maybe give them another sentence to actually clean it up and write it out.
Right. And so follow me with this, and I know you remember this one. So for the question part, basically what they do is they identify the action words of what they're going to actually have to do. So right here, they have to give.
Right.
Then I'm going to be giving something, and we can even talk about what they understand give means.
Right.
And then in this one, it says justify. I know I'm going to be justifying here. I'm going to be explaining.
Right.
And then I'm also going to be including. Here I'm going to be describing. Here I'm going to be giving something else.
Right.
So at least they know if I check these things off,
Right.
I at least know that I have 12 things I need to do.
Right.
So I did this, did this, did this.
I like that.
This, they will actually work out the problem.
Okay.
So whatever computation is required, solving is required, that happens here.
Okay, so that'd be your show your work box.
Right.
Okay.
So this is where I think we can address some of the vocabulary things.
Okay.
Because as they look at my step 1, my step 2, what did you have to know and understand to move from step 1 to step 2? Well, I know that I had to understand distribution or distributing.
Yeah, right.
So then you see them write that word down.
Oh.
Then from 2 to 3, I had to combine like terms. I'm just using this because
No,
this has
yeah,
nothing to do with
right.
this. But I had to combine like terms. So I know I had to do this. Then what's the next thing that you had to do? I had to use the inverse operation or whatever it is.
Okay.
So when they go to translate to the written part, all they should have to do is look at their steps.
Look at those key words. Yeah, I like that. And it sets them up to write the sentence.
So they're not thinking off the dome. They've broken it down, and all they're doing is now piecing the puzzle together.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help. That's why I would like to try it in your class, because I know, you're always doing something hands-on with the students, always, and they're very open to you and trusting of you, and so anything you give them, they're going to be willing to say it must be good because Ms. Rhoden is giving it to me.
Oh, wow.
And so, I'm in your room, so I know. So I think that if it's going to work in any class, I really want to try your first and second period.
Okay.
Because your first and second period was the class that basically was I don't know.
Right,
and I was surprised because I've been in there. So I don't know what happened with them.
I think, one big issue this school year that I think we've kind of just accepted and we haven't really translated to how does this, we've been working on trying to figure out how everything else works. Those late buses have really hurt the progress of the students. I have students getting to school 9:30.
We're videotaping.
Yeah, sorry. So 9:30, and so what I'm noticing is that they're behind, and it's really hard to catch them up because first period ends at 9:40. So I wonder how much, and then because you're thinking during support, that's our practice time,
right.
And sometimes I'll bleed over into explain. If they have tons of questions, then I'm gonna keep it going.
Right.
But they're missing class. I think that's it. Then we have a lot of them, the ones who work. They're in there sleepy. They don't wake up till lunchtime.
Because they're juniors.
They're junior. I got some repeat. Right. So there's other little factors that play into it. And I think they've kind of gotten accustomed to that whole, nobody else is getting to school until, 9:30, 9:40, or they're coming to class like 10 minutes late. And I've started, a couple
30
weeks.
minutes of instruction.
That's 30 minutes of instruction. And I find that I can't just not teach because
they're not there.
Half the kids, I have to keep going. And the other thing is, I found, how we've struggled in the last few years, 10 years maybe, 15, and kids doing homework.
Oh, yeah.
I've even had some schools, not this school, tell me to stop, what do we think about not giving homework at all? And I was like, well, math is not that. Math is like relationships. You got to practice.
Right.
Okay, it's like cooking. You got to practice. So, and they need that in-school practice because I try to do as much as I can in the classroom. And I think first period, they have those days where they're all pulled together. I'll say, okay, I'm going to wait on it. And I'm going to start it in support.
Right.
We're going to get everybody. And you'll see them, and they might have the highest grade on something. So I think that has been a challenge with first period, especially with the benchmark, because a lot of them, instead of getting that 2 days, they only have.
Right, that makes sense. So is that, I don't want to assume that that's the class you would like to see this in.
But no, I think that if that class is, any class I would appreciate.
Any class.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but first period is a good class to go with. And we got some really bright kids in that period too, who I think would appreciate this.
Okay.
And then once we do it first, I can learn all the pitfalls and caveats, and then I can do it with the rest of the classes for the rest of the day.
Perfect. And then would you be okay with videotaping it for your team?
I'm totally okay with that.
Okay. So the follow-up, when did you want to try to run this? Because I know today's Wednesday. So,
Right.
and I'm out tomorrow. So,
Okay.
and even Fridays, I know y'all's assessment days.
Right.
So in you all's planning tomorrow, can you write me in
Yes.
for one day next week, and then maybe shoot me an email or calendar appointment, and then I'll make all the copies for the students, or we can do it on Google Classroom, because I know your kids are good with Google Classroom.
Oh yeah, they have I scheduled 3 of theirs days this week on Google Classroom on Sunday. They were like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, this works well with this right here.
Okay.
Either we can do this problem. Is this the problem you wanted to do, or
whatever? I'm open.
Okay, so the next thing that I was supposed to start today, but they needed extra practice on writing equations for circles.
Okay.
So we're doing that. We had to go back and repeat completing the square and factoring to go from general to standard.
Okay.
I'm kind of confident there, but they also now have to go into something they've been doing for quite some time, which probably would make this a really good activity, which is graphing. Writing equations of a line from a graph, writing equation of a line from one point in the y-intercept or either the slope, I forget which one we're doing, and then writing the equation from 2 points. And so that way they have a foundation to stand on, and maybe we can really get them to proficient in that.
Because if we do activity, this, it addresses so many
it really does.
things. Even though it's one problem, it's a chunked problem. So maybe I'll shoot over just some ideas, and then we can construct it together. Cause
I like that.
Yeah, and then we can work it out together and make sure we understand it. Because I really want to jump in and us teach it as a team. Yeah. And with Miss Holman, your co-teacher.
Okay.
Because 3 of us in there,
it should
we can really pull small teams together, and we can decide kind of what areas we want to break them out into. And once they have it, then we can really ask them for their feedback in terms of whether or not it was helpful.
Or where we can tweak it. And I think this works perfectly with that, because anything multi-step, that many steps, this is a great tool for them to use. I'm glad you showed it to me.
So you're gonna, just to follow up, you're gonna when you're lesson planning, you're gonna shoot me a day that works for your schedule for next week to come in, and we'll meet before that though, just to take a look at it
and see what it looks like.
Right, and then we can start running it sometime next week, and if it's good, we can collaborative planning for your team is Tuesday and Thursday again. And so maybe by Tuesday we can, if we've done it by Monday, just depends on how your schedule works, we can, or at least let them know we're going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, because I think they'll be open.
Oh yeah, I think they are. Anytime you come in, they have. I don't know if they're fooling me, but I think they like when you come in. They get tired of me.
I like, well, that you can hear the same thing from the same person, from a different person. I said the same thing, just
it just
a
sounds
different voice.
Different, and they catch it exactly.
Right, so. But we want them at least to attempt every question.
I agree.
And so I think that working together on this will get it done.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Any questions, comments from me?
No.
Are you going to eat your snacks or no?
Yeah, but not on camera. I may get crumbs.
All right, you want to say bye to my class?